a lot of people would say, oh, you don't appear to work very hard sometimes because we have changed our lifestyle, that we do have quite a bit of time to do our own things that aren't just related to work. And I think, having or creating that kind of lifestyle balance is so essential for just feeling good.
That was the Wandercooks, and this is episode number 202 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey there, how are you doing today? I am so glad you've joined me. I'm Marley McMillan. I'm with the blog Namely Marley, and I am your host of the Chop Podcast. And what are we doing here? It's a great question. We're talking about a lot of things, including entrepreneurism, productivity, mindset, social media, and even some technical things like SEO. And we're talking about all of this as it relates to a passion for food blogging and influencing. I hope you've had a great summer. It has been an interesting time, don't you agree? I mean, summer typically is kind of an interesting time for food bloggers because traffic has a tendency to go down and just, it's a time to get caught up on a lot of other things like updating old content and things like that. But this summer felt a little bit different. I don't know, at least it did for me. Did you feel it too? I mean, I spent a lot of time updating old content and that felt good. It felt like I had a purpose, but I don't know. It just seemed like there's a lot going on that's made this period of time feel a little strange. But you know what? I think sometimes I love that saying where they talk about just focus on the things that you have control over. That means I spent a lot of time updating old content, and sometimes I'm wondering if I'm ever going to be done updating old content. But I do have a spreadsheet and it shows that I am 90% done. So that's a good feeling. Although I know that once I get to that 100% mark, there's going to be other things I'm going to have to go back and do anyway. So I think updating old content is going to be something that we all have to be familiar with for a long time. So if you're like me, you're looking for bright, encouraging inspiration these days. That's one reason I think you're going to love today's conversation. It's with Sara and Laura of the site Wandercooks, and that is Wander with an A, not an O. That's because they've done quite a bit of purposeful wandering around the globe, and their food blog showcases recipes from their travels. It's a little bit like a travel blog meets a food blog. And I really love this. It's kind of an interesting combination of those two. So here we are in this time when a lot of us are not doing a lot of travel. So for some reason, listening to these two talk about their adventurous stories, they actually did couch surfing and just all the local cuisine and just, everything that they've done just sounds kind of otherworldly in some way. I honestly find myself imagining what they went through and wondering if I could see myself doing it. The adventurous side of me is like, oh, God, that'd be so cool. And then there's this other side of me that's like, it's a little risky. Wait till you hear these stories they tell. It's pretty amazing. It's actually very inspiring too. And I love that way of traveling when you're not like the tourist, but you're out there actually getting to meet real people and finding out what the culture is like. And what a great appreciation for just people around the world and their different ways of looking at food and eating and community. It's pretty amazing. One thing that Sara said really struck a chord with me because she mentioned something to the effect of their work doesn't define them. And I think that's pretty impressive these days. And, particularly as a food blogger, I think this job can be all encompassing. And so to find ways to differentiate yourself from your work, I think seems so important. And they both mentioned how they enjoy their work and they put a lot of time and effort into it, but they also spend a lot of time doing things that they enjoy. And I think that's important to keep in mind. I think there's a tendency, and I'm saying this to myself as much as I'm saying it to you, there is this tendency to think as a food blogger that if we just work harder, work more, that we're going to be more successful. And I think the message that I heard from Sara and Laura is that it's also important to create this life that you love and that your work is part of that, but it's not all of that. I mean, I think one of the reasons I've heard a lot of people say that they wanted to start a food blog or they wanted to just do their own thing is because, we've all had bosses we didn't like, right? And so you want to get away from this corporate environment, from bosses that are terrible. And I just wonder, like, as a food blogger, you get to be your own boss. So just ask yourself this question: what kind of boss are you going to be? And I think I'll just leave it with that. But so anyway, as you can tell, this was a very inspiring, thought-provoking, and just downright fun discussion. In fact, I even left one blooper reel in because, I probably could have deleted it, but we were having so much fun and I wanted you to experience that fun with us. And so, anyway, it was a very fun conversation. And I think it's times like this where we need to have that light spirited, fun community to be a part of. So, let's get straight to it. Here's today's featured discussion with Sara and Laura of the Wandercooks. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have on the show today Sara and Laura. They're of the site Wandercooks. Hi, Sara and Laura. Welcome to the Chop Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Hi.
I'm so excited, and you're coming in from the land down under. Is that right?
That is, yeah. We're based in Adelaide in Australia.
I've never been there myself. It's definitely on our list of places we would love to visit. I hear wonderful things.
Yeah, it's not, and some people say that it's scary and it has the
Spiders, sharks, crocodiles.
But it's definitely nice. We've got the cool beaches and it's lots of nice nature and good for hikes and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I mean, I think you're going to find a little bit of scary everywhere you go, right? I mean,
exactly.
I live in a house that has brown recluse spiders. I don't know if you're familiar with what those are, but they're pretty nasty. And so, but luckily they are called recluse for a word because they are for a reason, because they are very reclusive, but it's always freaky when we see one.
Yeah, that sounds definitely scary. We have spiders called huntsmans, which are, they don't bite, but they're very big, and that's scary enough.
Oh, I wonder if that's similar to our wolf spider. It's a big spider, but it's not, I mean, I don't think it's poisonous to humans at all.
Yeah, I think it's mainly just the bigness and the furriness of them.
Yes, exactly. I always wonder why it seems to me like people like to kill those creatures, kill spiders. We have a net. We always collect them and put them outside because the reason I find that interesting is because they actually eat other bugs. So they're kind of nice to have around,
That's true. They're like a natural insect repellent kind of.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, anyway, we could talk about that some other time. So we're here to talk about food blogging, and I love the name of your site, Wandercooks. I'm just curious, what was it that caused you to start your blog? And then I would love to hear how you got that name.
So it started when we first started living together, and we decided to cook a different meal for 6 months, which was definitely an interesting time. And we came up with a lot of different meals at that stage and realized how much we really did love cooking and love discovering new flavors. So we ended up deciding to go overseas, which originally was going to be for 3 months. And our friends said to us, well, why don't you go longer? And we said, we can't do that. And they said, well, why not? So we stopped in our tracks and said, okay, maybe we can do this. So we ended up going overseas for a year to stay with local people and, go to local markets and those sorts of things and places where we could find new recipes and start the Wandercooks. So we ended up naming it Wandering, as in WAND, where we would walk around and cook everything and find food that way.
I saw on your about page where you said that for 6 months you did not repeat the same recipe. I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, it takes a lot of creativity, I think, to use ingredients in different ways, to find new recipes, and to learn a few different cooking styles as well. So for us, it just kind of happened naturally, though. We're really curious and we're addicted to food, if you can't already tell. And we just had so much fun with it. And yeah, it was friends and family that said, my God, you guys need to share this with everyone. You're so inspiring with how you approach food. So that definitely helped kick us into gear as well.
Yeah, and just the passion for traveling. I mean, did you always have that passion for traveling?
I think we'd never done anything like that before. And
really? That's cool.
yeah, the biggest travel that we'd done before that was a few weeks in Japan, which was great and so much good food. But the idea of traveling for a year, I mean, once we kind of got used to that, it was a personal challenge as well to keep that momentum going, to keep finding new places to go and discovering what we find along the way.
I mean, it's one thing to be a wanderer around the planet, and it's another to also be inquisitive about the local cuisine. I mean, there can be some very strange things in certain areas. I mean, have you just been open to eating whatever?
We've been, I would say, mostly open. There's a few things that we drew the line at. For me personally, I think we were traveling through Laos or Cambodia, and we stopped on the bus and for a break, and there were these trays of tarantulas at this roadside market, cooked tarantulas ready to go. And there was something about that glistening black and furry looking spider on a plate that was
Mm.
just not appetizing for me personally. I couldn't do that one. Maybe next time we go there.
Yeah. I think
Yes, but
another time we were in Vietnam, and we'd only just arrived, and we got to our hotel, and out the front was a group of locals who were having a drink and having a good time. And once we sat down, they actually offered to see if we wanted to try dog. And for me, that was also another line where I just couldn't cross it, especially having a dog at home. It was too much.
That's a
yeah.
big cultural difference, I think, there, and we were happy to let them be.
Yes. Although I did see on your site that you ate crickets.
Yes, actually, that was a really delicious surprise. We went to this little market, and we were kind of, you don't share a language sometimes with people, but you communicate in other ways through your face, through your hands, and we kind of communicated to them that we wanted to try these crickets, and they said go for it. And so we picked one up, and we looked at each other, and then we took that bite, and it was so surprising because it just tasted to me like popcorn chicken. It was salty, it was like a little bit crispy, and it was like surprisingly delicious. So I think that if we went back to Thailand, I would quite happily buy the whole bag of crickets and just munch on them, as strange as that sounds.
Were they breaded?
No, they were just literally like crispy fried, I
fried,
guess.
I
Like
think.
not even battered, but just crispy crickets. Simple as you get.
Yes, I see now that I really admire that in you. However, that's not something like I went to Greece and I wouldn't even try black olives. Of course, I was in my 20s and I just hated. I was not a very adventurous eater at the time, but
Yeah.
I think that's impressive that you're able to do that. And how cool is it that then you take that home and you're creating recipes that you can share with people can try at home.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's been so fun as well, just having those memories to share with people and,
Yeah.
kind of communicate that through the food and open that up for others to try. We don't yet have a recipe for the crickets, but maybe one day.
Yeah, that's right. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to imagine you taking off on your trip for the first time that you went for that year trip. Did you have in your mind that this could turn into a food blog that's based on travel recipes and that it would be your business?
Um, when we first left, I guess we just wanted to be open to seeing what happened with the blog. So we had started it as soon as we left when we landed in Singapore. And at first, it was more also talking about either restaurant reviews or going to, say, the local hawker markets and saying what food we ate there, and with a mix of recipes as well. But then as we kind of kept going, it then morphed into more of the recipe side of things. And then we stopped doing like all the reviews and the places that we went, because we found that that's what people were most interested in as well. And I think from there, that's where we started to really hone in on the home style recipes by staying with local people and talking with chefs in restaurants or even random people on the street. So yeah, it was definitely a discovery along the way.
And people love to talk about the way they cook, right? So that was really cool.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's great. And I think personally that is the way to travel. I really do not like touristy travel. I think, being able to stay in people's houses and seeing how they cook, that had to be so amazing.
Oh, we have so many fun memories and fun friendships that came out of that experience. One in particular was we were staying with, a new friend through couch surfing in Cappadocia and in Turkey. And he took us on this amazing, incredible adventure. Like we had known him probably less than 24 hours, I would say. And he's like, I have to share with you this experience. So we hopped in the car with him, and he drove us out probably an hour away from the city, out to this well, what was it? It was like an abandoned monastery, like ruins out in the countryside.
Well, just this is at 10:30 at night, only
Pitch
known him
black.
for a little while.
Yep.
Oh my
We're
God.
like, oh, I hope this ends up okay.
Yes.
The funny part was when he pulled out the blowtorch, and we're like, "What is going on here?"
Oh
Um,
no.
so what he had for us was he had these Turkish sausages, and he found some sticks, and he set up this fireplace that was there in these ruins that he obviously knew about, and used the blowtorch to cook these sausages in the pitch black. And and then handed one to each of us, and then we wandered around munching on these sausages, looking through these ruins with our torches, with our phones. And over here was where a saint was buried, and over there was just this kind of stunning night view. The stars were so bright out there because we were so far away from the city. And we sat there and we just talked for what felt like hours, and then we shared some little sweets, Turkish sweets, afterwards for dessert. So these kind of adventures you can't plan, you can't book. They just happen spontaneously. And
Yes. I
I
imagine
treasure that memory.
I imagine they were dates. Is that the Turkish sweets?
uh, they were
I
the
think more
pastry dessert that has the name has
I see.
escaped
is it
me
more
right
like
now.
a baklava,
It
but
was like a baklava, yeah.
the Turkish version.
Yes. with the
I've been to Turkey.
pistachios.
I've been to Turkey too, and it is just amazing, just I mean, like I say though, I was on a cruise, so it was like a visit to Greece, Athens, and
Mhm.
then a cruise of islands, including Turkey around the area. And I was kind of stuck with just stuck with the touristy areas, although we did get out a little bit from that. But, you see so much more of the country when you're able to get out like what you did.
Absolutely. And especially when you do make friends with locals, they know
Yeah.
where are those beautiful places to visit, or those stunning things that you just don't see when you're, surrounded by a crowd of other tourists. So it's definitely our preferred way of traveling, is to get out and see something a bit differently.
That said, the idea of, like, I imagine encouraging my daughter to go do something like this, and then I would think the idea that she would get and, go with some stranger, that I mean, it just freaks my heart just pitter-patters a little bit, but you were
I know.
safe, so it
And
all worked out.
our hearts were pitter pattering too. But I think that, because we'd been traveling for so long by that point, you kind of understand people a bit
Yes.
differently like that. You get to you get to know them a bit faster. You kind of understand who
That
they
judge
are.
of character.
Yeah. You kind of go with your gut with these things, and
I know
yeah.
when we were looking for who to stay with, because we mainly did do couch surfing. So we'd look at profiles, and usually if they did mention that they had a love of food, then we'd be like, okay, these are our people. That was like the number one.
Yes.
And when we messaged them to ask if we could stay, we'd actually say, look, we know that, usually people do couch surf. We are a little different. We cook surf. So we say that when we come and stay with you, we love to share a meal from our country, and then they would share a meal that is their favorite. So that way we could really learn their cuisine and their culture and sit down with them for a meal. And that was just magic.
Oh, yeah, and you bond over food so much, so that's just amazing.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, what did you do before? Like, I'm career-wise, were you like straight out of college, or what did you do?
I think this was a few years after university for us. We both had jobs as kind of like that graphic design and marketing role. And then, yeah, it's kind of totally different now.
Yes.
This experience of both traveling and starting the food blog definitely has taken us well beyond where we thought we would go,
Yeah, I
in
think
terms of career-wise.
we still kept our skills of graphic design and the marketing, and that's definitely been very helpful with doing the food blog as well. So I think before we left, we'd both been working in corporate for over 5 years each, and then decided, okay, when we get back, we actually set ourselves 3 months to say, let's start like we do a graphic design and website business. And we said, we'll start that with alongside the food blog and see if that can pay the bills for, the first 3 months. Let's see if that happens. And it did. So ever since then, we've worked for ourselves between the blog and our other business.
Ah, that's wonderful. And what I'm curious about is as you're on the road, then you're doing food photography as you travel?
Yeah, so we would take photos. Well, actually, I should say Sarah would take the photos. I did the writing for Wandercooks during the trip, and Sarah would do the photography. And so, she would be taking photos of the markets that we would go through and all the fresh vegetables and ingredients. And when we were cooking recipes with our new friends, she would be taking the food photography so that we could share that on the blog. Yeah.
It definitely led to some interesting situations where obviously being on the road, you can't have all of your props and
Yes.
everything to go with your recipes. So we had to get very creative. There were some situations where, say, in Cambodia, we decided to do fairy bread. And that was a huge adventure because fairy bread is a very simple recipe. It's literally bread, butter, and sprinkles, or hundreds and thousands, depending on which team you're on. And we ended up walking for about 5 kilometers to a big department store and managed to track down these sprinkles in Cambodia. And then we get back and decide to shoot it. And we're looking around and there is not much at the accommodation that we're in. So trying to get creative and make use of the natural light and the single window in our room, we spied an ironing board and thought, you know what, that's going to be perfect. So we set up the ironing board. I actually found a towel, which looking back now was not the best use of background texture, but we use what we can.
Right.
And ended up doing our fairy bread on there. So that was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, mother of invention, right? Necessity is.
Exactly.
Did you find that when you got back home that you wanted to reshoot any of those, or did you love the fact that, you know the story behind that photo and you kept it the way it is?
Actually, we haven't reshot that particular shoot. So if you want to have a look at the towel, you can have a look at our fairy bread online.
I do want to take a look at that. I'm
um,
intrigued.
yeah, but at the moment, we are going through and reshooting a lot of our old content, and one in particular, which I'm about to post up shortly, is for a French dish called, if I can pronounce it correctly, blanc manger or blanc
Blanc manger. Depends how you can get that French accent going.
Yes. Sounds good.
It's like a French panna cotta style dish,
Oh.
and I think we just got off the bus after a 22-hour trip when we got thrown into the kitchen and were learning how to make this dish. And my photos are horrendous under artificial yellow lighting, and I cannot wait to put my new photos up for that one.
Oh, I bet. I bet they're gonna be gorgeous compared to, like you say, dealing with the light that you have available to you when you're traveling.
Definitely. That, and as well, just even the angles and all sorts of bad things when you're still learning how to do photography.
Yes, exactly. I mean, food photography is a challenge. Even like, I say that from somebody who has been in the same house for 6 years. I can't imagine, just being out and about. You really have to figure it out on the fly.
I think from using floors to using bits and pieces in different houses or even in a hotel room. I think one time we found this ornamental platter that was perfect for one of
Ah.
our shots, and even taking advantage of, say, big drapes that are in some rooms to create some like nice shadow effects and all those sorts of things.
I heard somebody say recently that after doing some worldwide travel, that they thought France was the capital of all, fine restaurants and good dining, but they
Mhm.
felt like the most flavorful food was to be found in places, like Cambodia or Korea. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. I think Korea in particular, I mean, the flavors that are in that cuisine and the heat, the spice is
Yes.
just mouth-watering. And just I think we had just arrived there after spending maybe two months, I think, in Japan, which has a beautiful cuisine all of its own, but it doesn't usually make use of a lot of heat and spice. So going to Korea literally blew our taste buds out of the water. The spice in the noodles, even like a cold noodle dish, would just have us sweating with the heat. It was amazing. And I remember one night we went and found this Korean fried chicken, and we ordered the garlic version and the chili version because we thought that the garlic might temper the chili a little bit, but we were wrong. Thankfully, that cool glass of beer helped us get through that dish. But wow, Korean fried chicken, the real stuff. Oh, it's amazing.
I had a foreign exchange student from Thailand, and she would, as she was eating, she would be fanning her mouth because she was putting so much hot sauce on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think they call that the natural air conditioning, because as you start to eat this hot food, you start to sweat. And obviously, if you're sitting outside in Thailand and at a marketplace with that cool breeze washing over you, just starting to sweat, like that would be the way to cool down.
That's right. I love spicy food. Did you go there loving spicy food already?
I think that we developed a love for spicy food over our trip. I think we developed a tolerance more and more over that trip. Definitely going through Korea.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Thailand as well. When we were over there, I remember we went to the night markets, and we were talking with this mum and daughter duo who had this noodle dish that they were making up, and when they were putting it together for us, they asked, "Oh, how much chili?" And I said, "Well, the normal amount." And they said, "Oh, like my amount?" And we said, "Yeah, like how much do you have?" And they said, "Oh, that's too much for you." And we said, No, we'll be okay. Like, you put that much in. And that was the spiciest meal of our life. I think we struggled a lot with that one. But the flavors paired with the heat, it still worked, and I don't regret it, but it was hot.
We thought we were pros by that point. We thought we'd been everywhere. We've tried every spicy dish. We can tackle this one. And we were almost defeated.
But somehow you made it through.
Exactly. I still have the daughter's giggle in my head as she was pouring in the chili, looking at us yeah, you have fun with this, guys.
And probably that young daughter can handle spicy food because they're exposed to it at so young,
Yes, yeah. I mean, I remember we were in Vietnam, and in the morning we would go down to the local restaurant where they did big bowls of Vietnamese pho. And I remember there was a kid that was maybe 1 or 2, and he had his own bowl of pho, he had his chopsticks, and he was hoeing down on those noodles like there was no tomorrow, which I found fascinating.
He was a pro. I was impressed.
That's impressive because I'm imagining my daughter, I think she was having a hard time with the pincer grip to get some Cheerios.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely some skill involved over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you decide where you were going? You were traveling for a year. How did you decide, I mean, how many countries are we going to go to? How long are we going to stay? I mean, did you have a plan, or did you just kind of go along as you felt it?
I'd say when we first left, I mean, we'd floated the idea of a year, but we bought a one-way ticket to Singapore, and then I think, maybe a connecting flight to Japan. And other than that, we didn't have any kind of set plans. It kind of grew organically along the way. So, we'd gone through Singapore, we'd gone through Japan, we'd gone through Korea. And then a friend was like, "Well, hey, do you want to come and visit us in Paris?" And we're like, "Okay, let's have a look at the flights." And we found this ridiculously cheap flight. I can't remember the price now, but we were astounded. And so we've caught that flight from Korea over to Paris, and caught up with some friends over there.
And that's how we ended up in Europe.
Yep. We had no plan on being in Europe at that point. We thought we would be spending the whole year going through Asia, but not exactly sure of the finalized route or anything.
And I think after we were looking at the weather at the time that we were there, which was, I think, about April, May, I think it was heading into some monsoon season. So we thought it would actually be good to be in Europe for a few months and then come back to Southeast Asia afterwards.
And that's what you did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we ended up going on this kind of loop this crazy loop. If you look at the map, it looks crazy. Through Europe, through down to Italy and across to Slovenia and up through Germany, and then made a hop over to the UK. We got a ridiculously cheap special for a car hire for a couple of weeks going through Scotland, and that coincided with my birthday. So we found this cute little cottage or bed and breakfast to spend my birthday in over there.
Oh.
And then made the hop back over to Europe, and then made our way across down into Asia again.
Mm-hmm. I think we got as far as Turkey and then found another flight which led us over to Thailand, and that's how we got back over to Southeast Asia. So yeah, we were hopping from one side of the world to the other.
And when the year was up, did you know it was like, okay, it's time to go home. We're ready.
Yeah, we definitely did. I think, traveling we were traveling quite fast for most of that time. A lot of the time we would be in one city for maybe 2 to 3 nights before we'd be shifting along to the next one. And so it takes a lot of energy to keep up the planning and the logistics and trying to make sure that you see lots of the sights and eat lots of the food, and it's a big long holiday like that can really wear you out.
Exactly.
Yeah, so with one of our last destinations was Bali in Indonesia, because it's quite a short hop there from there to home. And by that time, we were ready. We were ready to come home.
I think so, because I think after being away for so long, you start to not appreciate at the act of being away on holiday. It does become
Yes.
almost like a job, and we would even joke that some days we were busier than when we had our previous jobs, back in the corporate world. So it was a nice time to come back and then appreciate the comforts of being home, to then work out, where are we going to go next, and then appreciate that holiday again.
Also, it was nice to have things like wardrobes, to not be living out of a backpack, and to kind of experience after so long that kind of being in one place and finding that feeling of being settled again. It was very nice.
Yes, I love that. I think, though, for many food bloggers, we're kind of stuck in the same place and trapped behind our computers. And I just feel like that travel model that you have is probably yields such creative writing, because you have so many great stories. It's not just here's the recipe. It's, oh my God, I was in this village in Cambodia and here's what happened. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was so beautiful to have those experiences, and I really do treasure them.
I was going to say we were quite lucky that Laura actually kept a daily journal of everything that we did and the kind of conversations we had. So we do have a record of everything that we can go back to if we do forget some things.
I think it spans about 6 notebooks, and because we couldn't carry everything with us when we traveled, occasionally we had to send them home, and I was so scared putting them into the post boxes and hoping that they would be there when we got home. And thankfully every one of those journals made it home, so
Yeah.
I'm very grateful.
So, are there some recipes that you tried and you think, even though you liked it, it's not something that's going to go on the blog for whatever reason? Maybe it's just too hard to get the ingredients, or it's something nobody's going to be searching for. How do you decide what then goes on the blog?
I think it does come down to we find that our readers like recipes that are on the easier side, and they do like to substitute. So sometimes, for example, there might be recipes that include harder to find ingredients like starfruit, for example. It can be harder to track down depending on where you live. So we will either modify a recipe to, say, for example, use lemon juice or lime juice instead of the starfruit. Or if we find that it just has too many ingredients that are a bit hard to find, then we'll make the choice to not publish that one on the blog.
Yeah, in particular, I think, for example, our chicken mole is definitely one that has been very, very simplified, because especially in Australia, Mexican cuisine is not as popular. So, it would be I think we have, especially in Adelaide, like one Mexican specific supermarket that we could go to. So trying to get, all the different chilies and that sort of thing, we tried to, simplify that so people can recreate it and still get as close as possible to having that dish and having those memories without going to like the super excess of going to 10 different stores to achieve that.
Yes, I think having that criteria is probably helpful. I mean, I find the same thing is that people really love easy recipes. So yeah, I can see where you've been there, you've traveled, you've experienced the traditional version of the recipe, and now you
Mhm.
can figure out ways to simplify it and get the same effect, I guess.
Exactly. And it is amazing. I think when we were, or because we were staying with a lot of local families, instead of getting the restaurant versions of the dish, which could sometimes be a little fancier, you would get their
Mhm.
home style versions, which usually would use those simpler or more pantry
Yes.
staple items, which made it a lot easier for us to then replicate and pop that onto the blog. So, yeah, I found that that was definitely a plus side of staying with locals.
Yeah, and well, how smart though to make your it's almost like you have a travel blog and a recipe blog that have, smushed together. And how, like right now, travel blogs with the pandemic going on are just I think my understanding is they're decimated. They're not getting any
Mm.
traffic. They're really struggling. And you've got the best of both worlds because it's like I said, you're doing the recipe side of it.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you say that because we just saw a comment on one of our Pinterest pins where a person had tagged in someone else and said, "You're going to love this blog because it's part travel and part recipe." And it's funny because I do think of it as more of a recipe blog now, but it definitely has its roots and its heart in travel and getting out there and experiencing the world and making those connections with other cultures.
Mm.
We didn't always know the language when we were traveling, but we did try and make an effort to learn a few key phrases, whether that was, please and thank you and or yes, no. And always, wherever we went, I would try and learn the word for delicious so that we could
Ah,
express our appreciation for whatever it was that we were eating.
oh, nice.
Another thing we would do is we would sometimes we would use Google Translate to find the way of saying, what do you recommend? And sometimes take a screenshot of that and show that to, maybe another patron at a restaurant or, someone on the street. And we would be led to some amazing surprises using
Yeah,
using that method.
yeah, definitely.
Ah, that's a
Um,
great idea.
yeah.
So do you
I think,
have Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say, in terms of no, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, you go.
So do you have, let me see if I get it. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're editing.
Yeah, that's
We just
right.
keep thinking about the food and we lose what we're actually talking
That's
about.
right. How often do you travel now? Are you on a calendar or no, are you on like a plan for your next trip or how often do you try to travel?
So we dedicate every June to usually going away for a month, and we find that at least over here, we're in the middle of winter, so it's yeah, quite depressing to be home. So it's a good time to get out and get away from the rain and the cold. So we'd usually take off for a month, and we're hoping to be in Canada next month, but unfortunately, yeah, our plans are on hold at the moment. So we'll postpone that, and then hopefully once everything is back to normal, we'll be able to go there as our next destination.
And do you have enough content backlogged or whatever that you feel, in other words, like, do you rely on the travel for your editorial planning or how do you do that?
I think that we use our previous travel experiences as our inspiration for our editorial calendar, but it's not reliant on us necessarily going out and having the new travel adventures to create the new recipes. We do have a bit of a backlog of recipes that we have learned. We haven't got through them all yet, and so yeah, that's at the moment. Our editorial calendar is part republishing of old recipes with the new
Yeah.
photography and building new recipe videos as well, which we weren't doing previously. And then, yeah, introducing a few of those new recipes into the mix as well.
I love it. I was going to ask you actually about video. Do you, how has that been incorporating that into your blog?
For me, I do the recipe video creation. Sarah films it, and I do the editing. And I was a bit scared at first to tackle this. I imagined it would be so difficult to put it together, but over time, it's definitely become a lot easier. And we've now created about 40 videos, and we've definitely nailed our kind of style of that whether some people love it, some people don't, with that tasty overhead style of recipe video. We like to use it as a quick overview of the dish so people can see exactly the steps that are involved and then head to the blog for the full recipe and the full instructions.
Yes, I love that. I can almost see though, like, if you were shooting video as you're traveling, you could almost do like a mini documentary about about the recipe and, maybe its background and how you learned it and a little bit about the village that it comes from. That would be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
That would have been so cool. I think that we were way too afraid of the idea of videos when we were traveling to attempt that. But I think maybe next time we're out and about, it could happen.
Yeah, now you got to replicate the trip.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we'll just have to do that.
Look, Marley, if we have to, like, we'll go. We'll have to just go.
I know the sacrifices that you made. Maybe if you want somebody to go, like carry your luggage, I can go with, huh?
I'm sure there's room in our suitcase. We can make it work.
I love it.
Like, we travel pretty light. I can say our usually we'll almost just carry on. So I think we only had about 7 kilos between us.
Yeah.
So,
no, it was a bit more than that. I think it was 7 kilos each.
Oh yeah. Sorry. That's what I meant.
But at one point we were carrying. We had mini laptops each. We had Sarah's photography equipment. I know that for a long time there, I carried a saucepan because we weren't always sure what ingredients or what equipment we were going to have access to. I carried a small bowl that we could always have breakfast in, and often we carried oats with us because sometimes we weren't sure exactly where we were going to be, how far from a market or a restaurant we would be. So carrying a few little ingredients like that just gave us this sense of confidence, I think, that we would never go hungry, that we would, at the very least, we could have oats and water until we found our next food opportunity.
It always cracked me up in the corporate world when I would, be traveling with my colleagues, and most of them would be men, and I would have just the carry-on, and the men would be like checking in their luggage. I'm like, what's going on here? This is so strange. I like to be a light traveler.
Yeah, definitely. I think there were times where, because we had our backpacks and then we had a small day pack on the front. And there were times where we would look over at others carrying along with their giant suitcases and struggling with cobblestones. And we were just jauntily walking along.
Yeah.
I say that, but there's sometimes those bags were very heavy, especially after a very long walk. I remember that we spent about 8 hours walking through London one day. We only had the one day. We were getting around to see everything we could, but there was nowhere that we could leave our bags because we weren't heading back in the same direction. And after that full day of chasing squirrels through the park and and wandering around, I literally did put my back out. And at our next stop, after a very long and painful bus ride, I was out of action for a couple of days there. Until my back came back together.
My feet hurt just hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was tough some days in particular, but definitely worth it.
I noticed that you have another blog and it's on frugal living. I think that's really cool. And it seems like those two would combine. The fact that you can pack frugally and live frugally is important.
Absolutely. This is the brainchild of Sarah. She is definitely the money, the numbers, the thinking kind of half of the partnership.
Frugal queen.
Yes, indeed. And yeah, just introducing these little things that we have along the way have had such a cumulative impact on our finances, on our lifestyle, that, it feels like things haven't changed, but then we look back, to how we were even a few years ago, and it's remarkable how far we've come.
I think the biggest thing was when, we'd been living together for a year before we left and packed up all of our stuff. And when we got back, because we'd been living for a whole year with just a backpack, you forget everything that you own and realize how much things don't matter. It is all about experiences. And it was so interesting coming back and looking at the stuff that you owned with new eyes, and we actually didn't like anything that we had. So we sold almost all of our stuff and kind of started again. And yeah, we do live quite minimally and frugally because it's just, I don't know, it's become our way of life.
And it's really satisfying. I feel like we read about a challenge one day of, get rid of 100 items over a month. And I think that we we got so into the moment with decluttering that we got rid of 100 items in one day. It's addictive after a while. So yeah, we have pared things back quite a bit. Not super minimal, but quite pared back.
Yeah.
It's very freeing, isn't it? Like I feel
Very.
that myself. I'm just at the beginning. I'm not, down the road like you all are with this kind of lifestyle, but I do feel free when I get rid of stuff.
Yeah, it's like each of those items kind of holds an emotional weight of some kind. And,
Yes.
and sometimes that's a positive thing. So that item you might keep because of the way it makes you feel. And others you might get rid of for the exact same reason. And I think that when you do get rid of all of that emotional burden, it really is a freeing experience, for sure.
Yes. And then, as far as living frugally, I'm curious if you have some favorite tips. Like, I mean, for example, we have Ziploc bags. I don't know if you have those there in Australia,
Yeah.
but we wash those out. We reuse our Ziploc black bags.
That is great. I don't think we have yet, but now I really want to because I have really kind of tried to be aware of how much plastic that we are using and
Yes.
trying to minimize that as well. Every part of our life seems to have a flow-on effect into a new thing. So, from the travel to the minimalism to sustainability now, we've really tried to be conscious of that. And, it's been a few weeks since we have put out our landfill bin because we're trying so hard to recycle and compost and all of that. So,
In
yeah.
in terms of frugal tips, I think one of the biggest things for us has been actually when we tracked the money in terms of our discretionary spends, like where was all our money going? When you actually write that down, or just to have a look at where it is, you're like, oh wow, like I spent $300 on takeaway, last month.
Yes.
Whereas when you know what you're spending, I think it really makes a big difference in just monitoring that and being aware of your spending rather than just spending freely.
Oh, I love that. I'm actually taking this course. It's called the Happiness Course. It was from an instructor that is at Yale University, and she offered the course basically for Yale students. And it was so popular that they had to move it into an theater place at Yale. And now they offer it. It's online. It's for free. I'll leave a link in the show notes page. But she
Wow.
actually says the most of the things that we think are going to bring us happiness do not bring us happiness. It's like our brains play tricks on us. So like we think more money would make us happy or more things would make us happy, but they don't. And
Yeah.
so look, what you're saying is so true. I think, if the freedom that you get from realizing that if I make, $500,000, that's not actually going to make me happy. So then you learn to realize, that, oh, I should be, I could be free to enjoy my life instead of working all the time and not being happy.
Yes, exactly. I think a lot of people, they forget to enjoy the journey the whole
Yes,
time. They're just trying to get to this end point. And it's like, well, why can't you be happy now? Why do you have to hold off your happy and wait until the end? What's the
right.
point in that?
Exactly. I feel like I've bought it, hook, line, and sinker. I was all in on this goal mindset. When I haven't actually got to the part of the course where she goes into, what are the things that you can do to make you happy. But I do know that there's some gratitude. There's, like you were saying, just kind of being present and enjoying the moment is really important.
Yeah, I think it's important to have goals, especially financially. But what
Sure.
we like to do is we have thought very carefully about our values, our lifestyle values as well. And so it's not just about that financial goal, but it's about having the lifestyle values and enjoying that time that we have right now. And yeah, as Sarah said, not waiting until the end.
Yeah. So, if a lot of people would say, oh, you don't appear to work very hard sometimes because we have changed our lifestyle, that we do have quite a bit of time to do our own things that aren't just related to work. And I think, yeah, having or creating that kind of lifestyle balance is so essential for just feeling good.
Yes, maybe it's reading a book or maybe it's gardening or the things that you do that make you happy rather than just working all the time. I mean I totally understand somebody who is there's some careers that probably take more time if you're a surgeon or whatever and if you have
Yeah.
that desire for quality I think that, if you're passionately following a value, like you say, I think that probably does provide more happiness than, say, the goal of, I want to have 1 million page views a month. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said about being happy along the way. And, whether that's through just taking things slightly slower sometimes, or whether it's turning
Yeah.
your daily life into a part ritual. You can work really hard, but you can still feel
Yeah.
really satisfied at the same time and really happy. And that's the balance that we try and find. Obviously there's going to be hard days or really, tough emotional days. But for the most part, we work and live very happily.
I love that. That is so good. Okay, so I like to ask us a few questions at the end of the interview that are just kind of fun. Are you all open to that?
Oh, totally.
Okay,
Definitely.
let's do it. Okay, so I want to hear from each of you. What is your favorite food?
Oh, that is so hard.
That is a
I
mean question, Marley.
know. I know.
Okay, we have narrowed it down to two favorite cuisines.
Okay.
So Japanese and Vietnamese food are equal place, number one for us. So for the Vietnamese food, I would say that our all-time favorite is pho. That noodle soup is amazing, especially with the Vietnamese spicy satay
Yeah.
sauce that you popped into it. And for the Japanese side, gosh, that's a hard one.
That is tricky. We cook a lot of Japanese at home. I think maybe our main one, I mean, we do cook a lot of sushi. That's probably up there. But our other favorite is actually okonomiyaki, which sounds funny, but it is a savory pancake where it's got a like thin batter and a little bit of cabbage and usually some bacon or seafood or whatever you like. And on top is the okonomiyaki sauce, which is kind of like a barbecue sauce with their Kewpie mayonnaise, which I love that.
It sounds good. It sounds like a mixture of sweet and spicy and salty.
It is a bit, yeah, especially with that barbecue sauce that brings in the sweet element. And
Yeah.
then it's topped with a bit of Japanese seaweed powder and then bonito flakes, which bring in that real savory umami element to it.
Yes, I love that. I've recently, you mentioned sushi. I've recently, or not recently, over the last year or two, have been making my own vegan sushi, and oh my God, it's
Mm.
so satisfying, isn't it? Just like rolling them and slicing them. There's just something very particular and satisfying about it.
Yeah, it's almost meditative, isn't it? As you
Yes.
start to roll it up and try and get it all nice and perfect. And yeah,
Yes.
yes, sushi is the best.
Yeah, we actually do a cheats sushi where we don't actually use the bamboo mat. It was one we were taught while away, and you just roll it up almost in your hands like a cone shape, and then eat it from there. And that's been a nice little trick that we learned.
That's like casual easy mode sushi.
That's how they eat it at home, not at the
It
restaurants. Is that what
is.
you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like
Oh.
party sushi. You can set everything out on like little platters in the middle of the table, and take a small piece of the nori seaweed, and everyone just helps themselves to build out their sushi just the way they like it, and then roll it up and get stuck in.
When I was in Brazil, I noticed that people will, when there was a pizza place that we went to, and they would roll up the pizza slices like what you were just saying, almost like it's
Mm.
have you seen that?
No, I
No, but it
haven't.
sounds great.
I know, I never seen anybody eat pizza like that, but it's obviously it was very normal to them. So
Oh wow, did you try that style?
I did, yeah, it was good. I mean, I was there for a reason, and that is because I was not very adventurous with my food, so I needed something normal,
Hmm.
something, and so pizza was that for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. Did
Yeah.
you like the way that it was rolled? Like, did you think it tasted better or just different experience?
It was just a different experience totally, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't say that I thought it tasted better. It was just I think it was kind of a unique way to eat it. I've never seen anybody eat it that way, and it was kinda cool, yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of how they eat it in Italy with the thinner style, like wood oven style bases, where they kind of fold
Yes.
it up.
In half
Yeah,
or
like almost in half before chowing down.
Yes. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's what I think is interesting too, is just like, you were just saying when you eat food in people's home versus or different places that you travel, it may be the same things, it's just eaten differently, and that's kind of fun too.
Definitely. It's so fun to learn, the different way that people approach food, and what's
Yeah.
considered a breakfast item versus what's considered a dinner item. Eating that Vietnamese noodle soup for breakfast and getting used to having that savory style, whereas, back home it was more like having cereal for breakfast. So, I definitely developed a love for that while we were traveling through Vietnam.
Have you traveled much to South America?
No, that is still on the list of to go to. We haven't
Yes.
made it over there or any of the Americas actually, which is why we're excited to head over to
Canada.
Canada
Canada.
for this year. And it'll just have to be next year,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yes, absolutely. I've been to Brazil and Argentina and Uruguay, and yeah, it's just it's beautiful. It's probably got a European feel, I think, to it,
Mm.
but yeah, definitely some great cuisine.
Nice.
So
Sounds delicious. I
I
think some
recommend it.
cultures just have like a different connection to their food. Sometimes Western style, it's kind of just a bit more distant. I don't know.
Yep.
There's some life to it in some cultures, the way that they approach their food, and I think that really has helped spark
Yeah.
and maintain that passion for food that we have.
Yes. It was an experience too. Like they won't bring you the check unless you ask for it. Whereas in the United States, at least, I feel like, there's a number in your head and they're like ready, they're just like churning you through. Like next, we
Mm.
gotta make a profit here, so get you out of here.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I was going to say, I think with, or in Australia at least, I think it's maybe more that laid back ish style, depending on the restaurant. But generally speaking, I think we can, go ask for it after.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it gives you that time to linger a little bit more and have that social element as well, where you can sit and talk with your friends, or
Have a
Yeah.
wine.
yeah, consider whether you're going to have that dessert or not.
Yeah. I think that's what they're most pushy about. They're like,
Yes,
"Are you having dessert? Spend more money."
yes.
Yes. That's true. And if I like dining to be an experience like that. I think it's more enjoyable. So yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so tell me about a favorite app on your phone.
Ooh. See, I've been trying to minimize my usage of my phone.
Nice.
So I might have to handball that one to
Well,
Sarah.
I'd say I've been using the Libby app at the moment, which is the online library app, which has come in handy while our libraries are closed. So I always have a book on the go. And that has been such a fantastic app for both audiobooks and regular ebooks to just keep on reading as much as I can.
That's amazing. Is that an international or is that just in Australia?
It is international, actually. So I
Nice.
think as long as you have a library card and a PIN, you can just sign in online and in Australia, you can put up to, I think, 10 books on hold and borrow 10 books at a time. So
Oh,
they have a really, really good selection.
nice. I'm a big fan of the library, but of course right now it's all closed. So I didn't even know about that. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Well, hopefully you can get on and get some free books and keep reading.
Yeah. I love it. And I was going to ask you, my next question is, do you have time for TV or reading at all? And if you do, so tell me what's your favorite?
Okay, so we don't have a TV.
Nice. I love it.
Part of the when we were going through our real decluttering and minimalization spree, we realized that we did have this big black TV in our lounge room, and we were watching it less and less, and we just decided to get rid of it. We actually gave it to Sarah's brother and his girlfriend and said, "Look, can you just hold on to this for us?" Because they had a tiny TV themselves, and they were very happy to have it. And we said, we'll decide whether or not we want it back. And once it was gone, we covered our TV unit with these beautiful plants and this collage of photos from our wedding. And it's become kind of this, I don't know, like an altar to relaxation and life and happiness. So,
Yeah.
so no TV, but we do have so much time to read. We are avid readers. We're so addicted to it.
Yeah.
Do you watch shows on your computer ever, or just no shows like that?
We do. We do sometimes watch a movie or a documentary on Netflix or Stan sometimes, but generally speaking, I'd say definitely reading is probably 80%, and every now and then a movie or a TV show.
I like that. I think it's like it's a forced quit time, right? Like, and it's like it's having like a small package of Doritos in the living room or in the kitchen. You're not gonna like pig out on them because you don't have them available. So if you've got a small computer screen, it's fun to watch a show, but then you're done.
Yes, yeah, I
Yes.
think it definitely broke the habit, and it was so odd because before, you'd go sit down on the couch, and so the first thing you do is grab the remote and turn the
Yep.
TV on. Whereas when it's not there, your mind kind of stops and goes, "Huh, what do I do?"
Or what do I want to do? What do I feel like doing?
Yeah.
So I've been doing like lots more yoga in the evenings, and we just sit on the couch together and talk and plan and daydream and snuggle our puppy, and
Aw.
it's really nice.
Oh,
That
that's
evening
really nice.
time is really like all about relaxation
I think it just
and
makes
recharging.
the evening feel longer, really.
Yeah.
I bet. And so tell me about, is there a favorite book that you've been reading lately?
I've been reading a guilty pleasure series. It's The first book starts with Dead Witch Walking. It is a fantasy series about witches and vampires, and it's thoroughly addictive. And each book is about 12 hours long, so it's been keeping me very busy.
Yes, sounds very good.
Yeah, and I read a lot of business, finance, and self help books. So I've been chowing through those the last couple of months. And I think at the moment I'm reading Cheapskate Next Door, which is very, very similar to The Millionaire Next Door, where they interview a whole bunch of frugal people and, all the habits that they have and that sort of thing. So I've been really enjoying just reading through his humorous writing.
Ah, sounds very good. Have you found some good tips in there that you're going to try?
Actually, yeah, there was a new one that I hadn't heard of that I was reading just this morning, which was talking about the quote, you should always measure twice and cut once. And this is then these two guys in particular were doing you save twice and pay once, which is the idea that, say, if you wanted to save up for, a book or a car or anything, you save twice the amount of money you need and then pay for the car or whatever is the item. And then you have half that money left over so that it doesn't feel like you've just spent all of your money. And then you put that
Mm.
away in savings. So, yeah, that was interesting.
That's a great tip. I love that.
Yeah.
Ah, that's a really good one. I'm gonna have to check out that book. That sounds very good.
Yeah, it's an easy read as well.
I like that. Okay, so how can people find you online?
So you can find us usually on Instagram at Instagram/Wandercooks or at wandercooks.com.
Well, Sarah and Laura, I have had a really wonderful time talking with you today. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having
Thanks
us.
for having us. It was so fun chatting with you.
Thanks to Sara and Laura for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. If you want to hear about the latest in food blogging, including keeping up on every episode of the show, head to chopped.academy and hit subscribe today. You may be asking, Marley, what can I do to support the Chopped Podcast? Well, thank you so much for such a great and insightful question. The answer is simple. You can subscribe to the Chopped Podcast on iTunes. You can also leave a review on iTunes. All you have to do is scroll to the bottom of the feed right there on your phone and you can leave a review. It's so easy. And 3, you can share a screenshot of this episode on Instagram using #ChoppedPodcast or #NamelyMarley. It's that easy. Your support of the Chopped Podcast means so much and it really helps to grow the show. And I really love hearing from you. You inspire me, and I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks for listening and have a great week.